The American dream. It's called a dream because you have to be asleep to believe it. The US is not the greatest country in the world anymore. How many times have you heard similar sentences? In fact, if you ask a random American on the streets of New York, chances are they will have a negative opinion about their country, regardless of their political stance. Actually, in the US, many people take their lives for granted and don't seem to realize how big of a privilege it is to be born in the United States of America. And if you bother to check the news, you will soon realize that all this negativity targeted towards the US does not seem to even slow down the unending tide of immigrants trying to make their way into this country. After all, if the US was all that bad, why would anybody risk their family's lives trying to get into this country? Here's 9.5 reasons why.
Number 1 on this list is the American economy. The US is number 1 when it comes to making money. With its highly advanced, developed, and diversified economy, no place on earth is better to make money, either as an entrepreneur or an employee. And the plentiful natural resources like oil, gas, and coal make it even better. Also, loans are affordable with interest rates as low as 4%, and the overall economic atmosphere is business-friendly, with the US being among the top countries for ease of doing business. The US also has one of the highest median incomes in the world, only topped by Luxembourg, UAE, Norway, and Switzerland, which are tiny countries with tiny populations, and having such a large country like the US on this list is a miracle by itself. To top it off, not only are you just paid more in the United States, but also you have more purchasing power. Income tax is also considerably lower compared to other developed countries. All these factors combined make the US the most economically prosperous country the world has ever seen. Number 2 is a strong currency. This one might sound similar to the first, but it is different enough to deserve its own time and title. Having a strong currency means it's cheaper to import goods and outsource dangerous or difficult services to countries with weaker currencies like China and India. A pair of $100 shoes might not seem that much for Americans, but they would be too expensive for many nations and even inaccessible for some. This is part of the reason why the US is the biggest importer in the world. Therefore, Americans can enjoy cheap products with somewhat decent quality so that more people from lower socioeconomic percentiles can reach a higher quality of life. And on top of that, you could get pretty amazing deals while traveling abroad. A US dollar could go a long way in Thailand or Indonesia. So book that luxury tropical holiday with gorgeous escorts and thank Uncle Sam later. I just can't comprehend why more Americans don't have passports when they could have the time of their life with just $2,000 or $3,000. For an average American, it would take a few weeks or just a couple of months to save up that money. But for many countries, that's just a dream. Number 3 is geography and nature. The US is enormously big. It is the 3rd largest country in the world by total land area and population. But if you ask me, I would say it is number 1. Why, you might ask? Because if you look at Russia and Canada, which are number 1 and 2 respectively in terms of total land area, most of their space is either uninhabited or very sparsely populated, whereas in the US it is more difficult to find large uninhabited areas. For starters, average population density in 2022 for the US, Canada, and Russia are as follows: 34.5, 3.92, and 8.53 people per square kilometer. I know not every state or province has the same population density, and these were only national averages, but no matter in which direction you go, you will probably find civilization in the United States. But that is not the case for Canada or Russia. You could also find pretty much all the climates you could think of. Feel like a Mediterranean beach holiday? Book a trip to California. Wanna go skiing? Give Vermont a quick visit. Looking for a jungle camping trip? You got countless national and state parks or even untouched wilderness. The American nature and geography really offer something for everybody. Number 4 on our list is liberty. Most Americans have no clue what it feels like to live under actual tyranny. Americans, fortunately of course, have been living under liberty and democracy for so long that they have no grasp of real dictatorship. So they think this is what it's like everywhere in the world, right? But no, that is not the case. If you dig deep enough, you will know that this level of freedom is rare, even in other developed countries. This liberty is so precious and valuable that even Europeans speak highly of it, and many Europeans dream of a life in the US just for the sake of liberty. Take gun ownership as an example, which I regard as the highest form of freedom. Very few countries in the world allow guns to be owned by civilians for any given purpose, be it self-defense, hunting, sports, or standing up to their own governments. Just imagine having the right to use guns to defend yourself and your loved ones whenever necessary. How awesome is that? Imagine having the power to stand up to your own government if they become tyrannical. However, nowadays some people or politicians are trying to use mass shootings as excuses to push for more gun control. People might argue that having more guns in the hands of people increases violent crime and murder, but the truth is, even if there were no firearms in the hands of the criminals, they would still use other weapons for their crimes, like in the UK where you have skyrocketing knife crime. And gun control would only disarm law-abiding citizens, while the criminals would always be armed regardless of the laws, since they don't care about the laws, of course. That's why we call them criminals in the first place. Generally speaking, very few countries have levels of freedom comparable to that of the United States, and most people can only dream of such freedom. Number 5. Science and technology. It is not a secret to anybody that the US stands on the edge of human technology and is continuously pushing the limits of human potential. With the most respected universities in the world, from the moon landing to nuclear energy, from Apple and Microsoft to SpaceX and Tesla, no nation comes close to the quantity and quality of American technological advancements. The US doesn't just make better and more efficient technology, it also makes it reasonably affordable for most people, either by producing it domestically or by motivating other countries to do so, like China. Next time you're using the internet or the GPS to find your destination, you can thank America for that. And when the time comes, the US will again be the first country to bring humanity to the far corners of the galaxy and be the pioneer to colonize other galaxies and other planets. Number 6 is culture and art. No country in the history of mankind has been as successful as the US in terms of exporting its culture, art, or language. Although some of it is owed to Britain, the US continues to make its culture dominant throughout the world. Even the most hostile countries towards the US are consumers of the American culture, and their people cannot think of a bigger privilege than making it to the US. Just look at Iran, or Iran, however you want to pronounce it, which probably hates the US the most. A mind-blowing number of high-ranking Iranian politicians and elites' children and families have either studied in the US or are currently living here. One might wonder if they really mean all those down with the US chants. This is living proof that the American way of life has gotten under the skin of its worst enemies. And it's not just Iran. From Venezuela to North Korea, American lifestyle and mindset is an ideal for many. On the 7th spot comes military power. Just take a quick look at globalfirepower.com or any other military ranking website. The US pops up on the first spot when it comes to military prowess. The US Armed Forces are not only literally the best equipped in the world, but also are the most motivated and the most experienced. Combined with cutting-edge technology, no force or nation in the world stands a chance against the full might of the United States. History has shown many times over and over again that messing with the US would bring the wrath of God upon you, and even the God himself cannot save you from the harrowing precision and firepower of the American armed forces. Some people might bring up the cases of Vietnam and Afghanistan as examples of American defeats, but those were political pullbacks and lack of political will, and not military defeats. Another interesting fact to mention is that the capabilities of US opponents are highly exaggerated by both themselves and, surprisingly, by the US itself, with the aim of giving its enemies a false sense of invincibility so that they would get themselves into troubles they can't easily handle, like the invasion of Ukraine by the so-called second global military power, Russia, and the annihilation of Japan in World War II. Number 8. Morality and greater good. After the Allies emerged victorious in World War II, the way the United States treated its defeated enemies changed the world forever. Even though they were killing each other a few months before, America helped Germany and Japan rebuild to a certain point that they became global economic superpowers, whereas the USSR resorted to sectarian violence and suppression against its former enemies and also in occupied lands of Eastern Europe. The US instead helped them rise again to prosperity. As a matter of fact, I could argue that even if the US is your worst enemy, there is a decent chance that you would end up a better country after defeat. Now imagine having the US as your ally. How awesome would that be? I would patiently wait for you guys to name a country that treats their defeated enemies better than the US. Let me know in the comments. And also, on an individual scale, Americans seem to always be concerned about the greater good. Number 9. Happiness. No nation in history has had more reasons to be happier than Americans today. With just a little bit of hard work, you can pursue almost any passion, travel to most of the world and get amazing deals because of your strong currency, drive the best cars possible, enjoy every climate you could think of, explore the third largest country in the world, use the latest technology known to mankind, enjoy every food you desire from every corner of the globe at the nearest restaurants, entertain yourself with countless movies, video games and series, and choose from the never-ending rows of products lined up for you to make your life easier. Even the kings, writers, and poets would have never imagined that such a prosperous and glorious life would be possible. And yet here we see some people take everything for granted and slam the US at every chance they get. I know, not everything is perfect in the United States, neither is it anywhere in the world. But the US is the best country in the world overall and not the best in every single aspect. Not to mention the challenge and complexity of governing a country with more than 330 million people from different backgrounds. Number 9.5 is safety. Despite what the media might say, the US is a relatively safe country. I know how the media and movies love to picture the US as a major war zone, with bullets flying everywhere. But the truth is, except a few cities and neighborhoods which exist in every country, the US is a safe place for raising a family and having a peaceful life. But the dangerous places were enough to make this one a half point. With all the things I just said, I still believe there are many issues that need to be addressed, and they are not by any means easy tasks. But remember, you know you have it good when the primary concern of your country is about which bathroom you use and not about watching your family getting arrested and tortured for standing up to the government. If you think there's a better country than the United States in the world, I would love to hear about it. Please let me know in the comments.